Hey guys, this is Deepak, and thanks for joining UpGrad webinar on a beginner's guide to product management in India. I work at UpGrad.com and I look after growth in products. Along with me, I have Vishrut Shukla, who is a senior PM at Zivame.com. Zivame is India's largest lingerie e-commerce brand, as some of you might know. At Zivame, he looks after web mobile products along with the whole analytics. Prior to this, Vishrut was with Microsoft as a program manager, where he used to lead the strategy, go-to-market strategy for mobile products. Vishrut enjoys working on product experience, product marketing, UX design, brand management in the tech space. He is very excited about the new technologies and new products that come. And to give some background, Vishrut has completed his post-graduation from IIM Bangalore and is a graduate of BITS Pilani. So just setting some context about the webinar, this webinar is divided into two parts. The first part would be where Vishrut will take you through a presentation where he will be telling you about how to start in the product management and all. In the second part, we will have a Q&A session where you can put some questions. We'll be taking some audience questions, some of our curated questions as well that we get in AMA sessions and other places. And we'll be, like Vishrut will be answering all of these questions. So why don't we start by handing this to Vishrut.
Okay, thanks. Can I share the presentation now?
I think you can start with a brief introduction and you can share the presentation.
Okay, perfect. So, hi everyone. I hope I'm audible clearly. So, I think the context has been set already by Deepak. I think a brief background about myself. So, I have been into product management not for very long. So, I am myself, a beginner. I've seen this space pretty clearly and closely in the last 2.5 years that I've been into product management. And this space, as you guys all know, and as you are attending a webinar about this particular topic, proves that this is a very hot space in India. In the industry today, there's a lot of excitement around this space. So yeah, just a brief background about myself. So yeah, as Deepak mentioned, I have done my post-graduation, my MBA from IIM Bangalore. Before that, I have worked for close to 3 years in the software engineering space. I was part of Cisco Systems. Based out of Bangalore, where I was a software engineer, and then switched gears, completed my MBA, and joined Microsoft in Hyderabad. I was part of the Microsoft Office team there, and the entire team there was actually engineering the apps. So our team was the one who sort of, who launched the Word, Excel, and PowerPoint Office suite on Android tablets and phones. So I worked on the PowerPoint app, and that's where I learned the baby steps of product management. In Microsoft, the role is referred to as program management, which is a mix of product management as well as project management. So that was a fun ride. Shipped out the product as a feature PM or as a technical PM in the PowerPoint team. After we launched the PowerPoint product, I actually changed gears and wanted to get a more business-facing PM role. Fortunately, got that within Microsoft, and I moved to a go-to-market role, wherein I was the go-to-market PM for Office for Android apps for all Microsoft's global partners. These are basically device partners like LG, Sony, and a bunch of regional players in China as well as in India to get and acquire more customers for the newly developed apps that we have, because user base is something which is very, very critical whenever you launch a big and ambitious and popular product like Office on a new platform which is purely dominated by non-Microsoft players. So that was a fun ride. I did that for almost a year. Good traction on the numbers, as well as enjoyed a lot and learned a lot about business PM as a role, right? So in my presentation, I'll be covering the various flavors on or types of PM as well. So that is when I'll talk more about what's the difference between them. But yeah, so that's and then I switched gears and been with Zivame for little over 6 months now. I joined in the Bangalore office where we are headquartered. Here, as Deepak mentioned, I look after the web platforms, which is the desktop side, the mobile side, some of the areas of the mobile apps, some part of product analytics, and of course, the startup space is pretty exciting and pretty challenging at the same time. There's a good contrast between the MNCs, the world of MNCs like Microsoft and Cisco, and the world of startups like Zivame. The agility, the pace, the impact, everything is really, really different in these two worlds, which some of the details of the examples I'll try and cover in our brief talk today. So yeah, without going further into my background and experience, start this by just sharing my screen. I hope this becomes. So I have a brief presentation. Let me know. So people, can you confirm if that is showing up now?
It is showing up, Vishrut. You can go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So I am making believe that the audience and all of you who have joined us today are aspiring to take up product management as a profession, and from a background perspective or from an experience perspective, I think some of you must be engineers, some of you must have completed your MBAs, some of you must be coming from different non-engineering backgrounds, and trust me, there is enough excitement and enough opportunities in the product management space in India to sort of accommodate all of us from different skill sets and different backgrounds. So just wanted to put together a very brief presentation, which I hope we'll be able to even share with you guys, because some of these content might be relevant about how the product management space in India is shaping up. So this is my view. Product management is a vast profession. Different people have different takes into it, different skill sets come into it. The environment and the context matters a lot. And hence, no one person can sort of summarize it or present a complete picture, but this is just an what it takes to be a great PM. So let's get started. So basically, what I wanted to do was, when we start, kind of, burst some product management. But before we do that, I wanted to start with saying who exactly is a PM, right? So why do we need a product management role in the organization? We have business facing roles, but a guy calls himself or herself as a product manager. So in the truest sense of the word, a product manager is basically a rightful advocate of the customer. So the product management candidate, or the PM, is basically the person who represents the customers in any decision in the organization, right? So look at it in Amazon's parallels, right? When Amazon actually conducts meetings, there are a lot of meetings where they actually leave a chair empty. The empty chair actually represents the customer, right? Not every company actually does that, but the PM is supposed to basically own up that role. He or she is supposed to speak up for the customer. So they are the persons who are responsible to represent the customer, their experiences, their interests, their desires in a particular product development organization, right? And a PM pretty much helps to guide the entire product development team in any organization in kind of to build for the customer, and what is the right experience, or what are the right products or things and experiences that the organization should basically aim for to provide for its customers. You can read more about it, on online resources like Product Manager HQ, and there are different people who have different takes. But in the essence, this is what a PM is supposed to do. A typical PM workflow is, a PM goes through at any point of time for any product or any feature that he or she is working on, right? They typically go through this particular workflow wherein first they do research, they do some bit of planning of as to what is the requirement, what does the customer need, what to build. The second stage or the next logical stage is to design or conceptualize the idea or the feature that is to be built. The next phase is to work with the engineering counterparts to actually get the idea implemented in using the right technology and using the right tools. And finally, the last phase is to basically work on getting the product or the idea released to the market. And then the whole cycle repeats. There is just one connecting step in between at a very high level. After the release is done, the PM is responsible to measure how the feature or the product is performing, gain both qualitative and quantitative feedback about what has been released, and again feed it back to the research and planning cycle. A typical agile model, the software development or the product development model, which most companies and organizations follow today, this four-step process and then the feedback loop continuously happens almost on a daily basis. So every single point of time, the PM is doing something in each of these phases, because none of us work on a single task these days. All of us are juggling against tasks, and we all do multitask, and hence at any point of time a typical PM is in more than one of these stages and has to do time share between the two. So that is pretty much in a nutshell what a PM is supposed to do and why a PM is required in an organization which already has so many different roles, which are very well defined. Right? Okay, so basically before we go into, since you guys are actually aspiring to start a career in product management, right? There are because it's such an exciting field and such a vast field, there are lots and lots of myths, so-called myths about PM as a role. So I wanted to basically take this opportunity to sort of list down some of those myths, try and present my view of the truth or the way I see the PM role from the point of view of these myths. And in the process, we'll basically learn more about what the PM role is all about, and if how can you decide that you want to basically take up this role and will be suitable in their way. So basically, the number one myth, if I may go in, is basically the fact that PM's role or the expectation that a PM's role will be very, very well defined. That is the number one myth. A PM's role, in my experience being a PM in two organizations, doing a PM internship in one organization, and then when I was working as an engineer in Cisco, observing PMs very, very closely on my team, has been that this particular statement or this myth is, or this particular statement that the PM's role is well defined is absolutely wrong. A PM, as I've written, there is perhaps one of the most overloaded and abused term in the industry. There is absolutely no universal definition of what a PM does. You pick up any article, any book, talk to anybody who has been a PM, and they will say that their role and the responsibilities as well as skill sets vary with context. Some of these contexts can be from the organization that you work for, the size of the organization that you work for, the industry of the organization that you work for, the product, exactly the product or the feature that you are working with, that you work with, and the stage in which the product that you are working or the project that you are working in is currently lying. The fourth one, the stage is pretty clear, because as we covered in the last slide, right, depending on which stage the project is in, the PM actually wears several different hats. If my project right now or if my product right now is just about to be shipped, right, I will be in a mode which is more about getting it implemented and doing a lot of release planning, a lot of go-to-market activities to ensure that my launch happens correctly, because I have done the research phase, I have done the design phase for this particular product. So stage of product is actually fairly simple to understand. I will touch base upon the first 3 points because I can use some of my experiences in both Zivame, an outsider in Cisco, to sort of tell you how PM roles vary. So just to give an example around organization, right? Cisco, was a very, very marketing heavy role. So a PM in Cisco, when I was there in from 2005 to from 2009 to 2012, the PMs were more customer. The PM was a more customer facing role. The product managers were more product managers. They used to meet customers. They used to get requirements from large enterprise customers of Cisco, come back and translate those requirements for the engineering team to build. So a PM actually used to interact with the senior director or director of engineering. So that's where their interaction happens with the engineering org. In Microsoft, a PM is a particular is actually a very, very significant vertical. So the PM org runs right from individual contributors to all the way up to VP and corporate vice president of program management, right? So it's a vertical org along with the engineering org. There, the PMs are involved in all of those four stages that we talked about previously. In every single stage, the PM has a very, very important role to play. And the project timelines and the project delivery is run by the PMs. There is no separate project manager in most of the product companies. For example, Office. I've seen Office as an org very, very much in detail. And there is no project manager in Office. There are always product managers who are doing or running different hats at different times or a stage in the product delivery. In Zivame, the product manager role is a mix of both business manager role and a technical or a feature PM role. So as product managers, we do own some part of business metrics. Owning definitely the product experience, the customer experience on our, all our desktop as well as on our mobile platforms, as well as now that we are going into offline as a channel, the product managers also have a role to basically define the customer experience in the offline channel. So depending on organization, depending on the size of the organization and the product and the business that you are in, a PM's role can be very, very different, right? So you can read more about how the PM role has evolved in one company, let's say at Microsoft, right? In a 2005 note, that's the link that I have given. It's written by Steven Sinofsky, who until recently was the president of Windows division at Microsoft. He has actually written a beautiful note about how PM role started in Microsoft, how it has evolved. This is only within the same company. Think of it at an industry scale, terms of different flavors of PM. Which brings us the lot of PMs that you talk to and a lot of literature that you see as written about PMs talk about or project PMs as being mini CEOs of their product, right? While depending on context, some of this might be true. My general take on this is the whole mini CEO term is actually highly overrated. PMs typically start as an individual contributor in their organization, right? So when any of you, you take up product management as a profession and you join as a PM, you'll be a single person, probably part of a bigger team, reporting to a manager. You will be an individual contributor. You will be entrusted with the responsibility of either a feature. When I joined Microsoft, I was looking after the presentation experiences in PowerPoint, which is a slideshow, presenter view, all of these features in the PowerPoint for Android app. A person, my skip level manager, my second level manager was the person who used to look after PowerPoint for Android. So you will start most likely as an individual contributor. You will grow up the ladder as a people manager. Is how typically the PM role is positioned in most organizations. In startups, mostly like startup like ours, there are four of us in the product management team. All of us report straight away to one manager who happens to be the CEO. So all of us are at the same level. There is absolutely no hierarchy. So depending on organization, you are all individual contributors. You may or may not have a hierarchy in the PM. But yeah, that as I said, it actually varies with the size of the organization as well. You will be better off thinking of yourself, this is my view, as basically somebody who is part of a larger machinery with a huge set of responsibilities, but really not the one person who is interested to call all the shots about their product, right? Because a product is finally a culmination of different functions coming together. You cannot imagine a product going out of a particular organization without marketing, sales, customer facing teams, support teams, business development team, or operations team, all of them coming together. You will be required to sort of lead, or you will be required to sort of be the face of the product, and you will be liaising with a lot of stakeholders and functions within the organization, including sometimes the senior leadership team, the engineering team, the business development team, marketing team, and all of that. But you are, if anybody says that they are the ultimate people who call shots about their products, more often than not, that is not true. That's not how it gets positioned. Another very important point that we need to keep in mind when we take up PM as a role is, at any point of time in any organization, or in most of the organizations, PMs are basically PMs lack direct authority over the team that they actually work with. So, for example, team, but my engineering team is actually headed by the engineering director, right? Uh, I cannot actually go and basically instruct, and I use the term instruct. I cannot basically instruct my engineer to do certain thing, because in the hierarchy and in the scheme of organizational structure and design, my engineering reports to his engineering change. He reports to his manager. The manager reports to his director. But the PM is supposed to still influence the engineering team, and influence not only the engineering team but all different functions, different people who might have different ideas, viewpoints, and working styles, to still come together and deliver a product. Right. So the PM is somebody who has influence without authority. So we need to keep this very much in mind, because a person or a PM's temperament needs to be built to be suited for this job. Most of the time, the PMs end up doing a thankless job in the team. I'm being very, very honest about it. If a product is successful, the credit goes to the entire product. Is actually a failure or something goes wrong, and business metrics get impacted, specifically things like revenue or your user base, the blame actually comes to the PM, because the buck stops with you. While if something becomes successful, definitely it's the entire team and all the functions who have contributed towards it. So the PM doesn't gain the spotlight for good reasons. The PM typically gains the spotlight for the bad reasons. Right? So from a temperament point of view, you need to keep this thing in mind, that all of us will be better off regarding ourselves as individual contributors, significant contributors, but we are still individual. We are not the person who is going to decide everything. You are not going to decide things on behalf of your CEO or your leadership team, because you are leading a product. Okay, so that's about myth 2. The third myth which I come across often, and which a lot of people have also written about, is basically about in a lot of organizations as well, is that PMs only manage. It's the others, or the engineers, the engineering team folks who actually do the work. While the organization culture and the definition of the role has a lot of role to play into whether this is true or not, my sense is that this is definitely not the case. The reason why I say that is, PMs are expected to get their hands dirty in any organization. I have seen a startup, I have seen an MNC like Microsoft. In both the cases, the PMs, the individual contributors, are supposed to get their hands dirty. Which applies on a PM is that a PM can never ever say that that's not my job. The PM, because you are supposed to bring together all functions, all stakeholders, your entire engineering team, and liaison with a lot of other folks who have a viewpoint within the company, where a PM can say, okay, this is not something which I will do because it is not my job. You're not expected to do that. Right. So just to give an example, right? So when we were developing PowerPoint for Android, right, we had a clear deadline to ship the product out on December 27th, 2014. Now that deadline is cast in stone, because we have committed to our CEO Satya that we will be shipping out the product on that day. Now, working backwards from them, we realize that we are short of hands, short of engineering hands, to basically do UI polish. So what we call as the final screens, final polish of the screen to make it visually look very stunning and ship the product out finally in the hands of the customer. We do not have enough bandwidth for our engineers to basically complete that in time for the ship. Decided was whether PMs can actually step up and contribute. So I actually, after earning an MBA degree, I, along with a bunch of other PMs as well, from every single team, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, shared components, all of us basically spent, if I recall correctly, around 1.5 to 2 months of our time to also contribute in the UI polish exercise by actually coding. That's the first time when I ended up coding on the Android platform, and I learned it. I basically did the UI coding in Java, in the XML language, which basically Android has. And that's not something which a PM can step away from and say, no, it's not my job. It's the engineers are actually supposed to code. We will not pick it up. You will, as a PM, you're supposed to, or you're expected, and that should be in your DNA. You will do anything it takes to ship out a product. If you have committed for a date, if you have committed it to your customers, you owe it to give any and all kinds of support to basically get your product right and get the experience right. In Zivame, there are times when basically I stop writing spec, or I basically, in addition to writing spec, I also sit with the developer and go through each line of code. In Microsoft, I used to do code reviews. So there are times when basically a PM has to step up and just go out of their comfort zone also to quickly learn new things, adapt, and then contribute to meet timelines and ship out a successful product to the team. So that's one thing or one note about getting your hands dirty. Always be ready to sort of roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, because you are the one who is actually responsible for the overall success, right? So the other point is, if you are interested with the overall success of the product, and you know that if something fails, the bug stops at you, the PM matters in every single detail about the product. Whether the function is something which sort of expects your inputs, or it doesn't expect your input, in my opinion, in my understanding, and the way I have seen it working in all the orgs that I have worked for, you are expected to basically deliver your opinion and work with stakeholders to sort of ensure that you are doing the right thing for the customer. Because for all functions, or for the entire product development team, you are the person, remember, who represents the customer, right? So if you look at the diagram on the right, it beautifully puts in, it's a very famous diagram, it's very well known, it beautifully puts in what product management entails, right? So on one side you have the customer. You put the customer first, and you build an experience which is basically usable, useful, and desirable for the customer. On the other, the other circle in this Venn diagram is basically the technology, which is, as a PM, you need to always keep in mind whether it is possible and feasible to build, or to achieve whatever idea or the experience that you have actually imagined. So you need to keep the business realities in mind, the market conditions and the competition in mind, seeing whether what you are building is needed. The marketing teams be able to go ahead and sell it? Will you be able to make money? Will your business metrics be able to get achieved? And whether it is actually distributed, right? So when all of it comes together, the product management sits right in between, because you are at a sweet spot. You have visibility into all of these three things, right? So playing the role of a PM is more like an art, and it's not something which cannot be developed. It's a skill which definitely can be developed. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is you don't need to over-assert and overstep. If you are overstepping into territories of your stakeholders, most likely you are going to lose respect, and most likely you are going to face their anger. They'll be reluctant to actually listen to your views. So it has to be done in an artful manner. In your opinion, keeping the customer in mind, and not doing it only because you think it is the right thing to do. Speak the language of the customer, and your stakeholders will understand it. That's basically the bottom line. You will have to listen endlessly to a lot of different opinions, because you are the one person who sits at the center of the Venn diagram. You need to diffuse a lot of tensions that happen between different things, typical tensions. The engineering team will basically come and say that I will not be able to finish the product on time. PM, it's the engineers who set the deadlines. The PMs will never set the deadlines, because it's the engineering capability and their skills, which basically determines what goes into shipping. Downward, they are the ones who understand the technology and the complexities. So while engineering will basically come back and say that I cannot meet timelines, the business will always push that no, I need go to market to happen like yesterday. So I've worked with partners in Microsoft, like partners like Samsung, which is basically famous to sort of demand everything to be completed yesterday. They want perpetually the company operates in a mode which wants everything yesterday, right? How do you basically play a mediator and diffuse tensions between your engineering team, which gets pushed from all directions, and your business team, which keeps on, putting a lot of pressure? You as a PM has to take a very, very central role and diffuse this tension, handle that stress, when to speak, when to interject, when to take decisions, put your foot down and say, no, this is exactly why we will follow this plan, keeping always the customer in mind. You have to switch a lot of context. When you are in a PM role, no to different people just because you are basically you are expected to multitask. If you are working, if right now I am sitting in the Zivame office and I am writing, let's say, a spec on analytics, right? If somebody from my engineering team comes and asks me about where a particular icon will go, I cannot basically hold the engineer, or ask them to hold off for a while until I complete my spec. You have to be cognizant that the stakeholders' times are also important, and especially the engineering teams who are always under a lot of pressure. You need to switch context, contribute there, come back, and this will keep on happening repeatedly. Business will come and interject you. Engineering will come and interject you. Everybody will basically come and ask for a share of your time. So how to basically achieve this whole thing and this particular thing, which we call as an art, right, is to build credibility. How can you build credibility with the different stakeholders? Can you just go and push your weight around and say, look, I'm the product manager, I own the product, I'm the mini CEO of my product, and hence I need it to be done in this particular way, so you go and do it, which typically I have seen in most organizations, it doesn't work at all. Because you need to keep always this fact in mind that you have to influence, but you don't have authority over the people that you work with. Right? So that's an art. You need to build credibility first. You need to basically prove to your team that yes, you are adding value, and there's a certain point of view that you bring that nobody else brings. And mind you, the role is structured like that, and hence, just with a little bit of effort, you will be able to place that credibility. You have your stakeholders on your side. In most organizations, what a PM needs to do, right, as I have basically put it, is to have different personalities at different times. There is a time when you start in an organization and get to know your teams, when you are very, very, understanding, quiet, observant. When you basically understand and build a rapport and credibility in the team, that's the time you actually switch gears and you basically start contributing very actively. There are times when things are going haywire and there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of scope creep happening in the project, things are getting delayed. That's probably a time when you have to basically be a little bit aggressive and say that, look guys, we need to get our act together, right? So a PM's personality changes and is supposed to change. That's how the role is structured. The temperament has to be that you will play a different personality at different points of time. Sometimes you will basically become a very right brain person. Sometimes you will become a left brain person and go completely into data. Sometimes you will basically take a leap of imagination and say, ship out a product because I think this is the right experience. We'll fail, we'll iterate, we'll look at data and then basically correct answers. Right? So these are different flavors, and it's all of this, if you look at it together, it proves that PMing is an art. It's not something which you learn on day one. There is no degree that can sort of teach you this. It can only be learned with experience. It can only be learned on the job. If you do all the right stuff, you will keep on becoming better at it. With all of this, which are basically the three most important bits that at least I have come across, and I've tried to sort of put in a lot of the learnings of that I have had about PM as a role as part of these bits. I wanted to sort of define what is basically a PM. We use a lot of these terms called minimum viable product. Basically borrowed that term and say, what is a minimum viable PM? What are the essential absolutely critical qualities that you need to have in a PM. Not saying that you need to have that on day one of the job, because no uh, there's no degree, there's no. These are things that a good PM should possess. The topmost is customer focus. You absolutely are answerable to nobody else except for customers. Building the right experience for the customers, revenue will follow. If you're building the right experience for your customers, your business metrics will go up. Number one is customer focus. Number two is product vision. Ability to think long term. What you are doing today, how does it fit in the larger picture? That's product vision. Product design skills is basically having that knack, having that critical knack that, okay, if I do this versus this, what will fire? Not every time you will get it right, but every time you fail is basically a lesson, right? So the product design skill is basically very important. Since you are the central person and you are the one the central role in that entire Venn diagram that we covered in the last slide, you need to have initiative and leadership. You are the person who's supposed to rally your team. You are the person who's supposed to hold us and function in the organization. Say, organize a meeting, get together in a room, say, guys, we have to solve this problem. I take initiative, I take leadership. This means that a lot of times you will end up spending your day in meetings. A lot of times you will end up spending your day in dousing fire between teams. But there's nobody else who's supposed to do that. There's nobody else. There's no other role which is structured and which is imagined to actually do that except the PM. So initiative and leadership is definitely something which is at the core of the PM role. Analytical and data skills. It's a very well known fact. Don't need to sort of underscore this. If you are flying data blind, more often than not, the product will basically fail. So the whole cycle of completing that loop, the loop that we covered on the first slide, right, where after the release you measure and you keep on continuously measuring and feeding it back to the release, to the planning phase, in the research and planning phase, right? That can only happen if the PM is well versed and passionate about looking at data. How do you ship out a product and immediately start tracking data? How do you basically derive pleasure in by simply looking at how real customers are using your product and how can I make it better? Is basically something which makes you a great PM, right? Technical skills. I have put these points in a particular order, right? So it's not random. I've basically put these points in a particular order because see the way product management space is imagining is actually evolving in India. Technical skills, and I put basic engineering and architectural understanding as the skills there, are important because a lot of our PM roles are actually in the software industry. While that is not always the case, the PM roles vary from business facing roles, which we are going to cover in the next slide. Uh, a sense of how products are made and a sense of how engineering happens always helps for you to build a good rapport and credibility with your engineering team. So if I today walk into an engineering meeting, I say that, okay, the code that you are actually writing, if you can cache this particular part of the code, because I have the understanding of that. So if you cache this particular part of the code, you can actually improve the latency that you serve for your end customers, right? That builds a credibility for me in the engineering team meeting because they know that, okay, this guy knows his stuff and he's actually talking sense, right? So basic engineering and product architecture understanding is always a must for a PM. If your background doesn't allow that, try to learn it on the job. Sit with an engineer, sit with a member of the team or your engineering leader and basically get a dump of how your engineering systems work into add into your skill sets as a team. The last point is basically something which applies to any role in any space. I think the link below lists down several more of these properties. In your free time, you can actually go and look at what makes a minimal viable PM and see if you are fit for this role. So that's an interesting read. Okay, so from just wanted to put that from a theory to practice. Uh, from a theoretical Venn diagram point of view, we always say that a PM is basically a central point in the user, technology, and business perspective. But in essence, it's actually a lot more. There is a lot of peripheral skills required. For example, passion, judgment, the amount of impact that you can have for your customers, and of course communication is something which is at the base of it all, right? So this is actually one of the gentlemen, PM on Medium had actually about how these peripheral skills actually sort of add into a prospective PM to make them from a good PM to a great PM. So just urge you guys to actually go and take a deeper look at it. These are things that you can actually develop on the job. So yeah, definitely. Okay, so this is the last jam slide that I have, but I wanted to actually take this opportunity to sort of share which flavors or what are the different types of PM roles out there. So if you look at this, right, since we have covered that in organization and depending on context, the product, organization, the stage of delivery, the size of the organization, the PMs come in different roles, right? Within the same organization also, two people who have a designation of a product manager can be doing completely different things. I've listed down broadly the three flavors of PMs, and you can read more about it in the link given just below the diagram. There are three flavors. One is a business PM. The business PM is often interested or is supposed to have a growth mindset, right? What do I mean by growth mindset? Is basically the business PM always work with more customer facing and business stakeholders and continuously ask questions such as how do we grow the business, how do we monetize the product. They basically work with mainly BD teams and marketing teams. Traits that you typically see in business PM or great business PMs is that they actually come up with for giving a product that hockey stick growth that everybody dreams, right? So that person is not most likely going to get involved in day-to-day technical delivery of your product. Is more going to basically talk about business metrics, more going to talk about monetization, revenue growth, all of these things. So that is basically one particular flavor of PM. The next PM is the user PM, right? The user PM are people who are primarily right-brain people, who are very, very creative, who actually focus a lot on UI, UX, artistic stuff, making a visually enriching, great, seamless experiences for the user. Typically, they have the designer mindset who basically ask the question of how will this product or what will my product, make users feel. They come with a lot of background in design, psychology. Sometimes they're non-engineers. They do a lot of. They come from the user research background. They're always obsessed about visual tweaks. That button should be moved from left to right. The color is not appropriate. Things like that, right? Fonts, icons, all of these things, right? So when you identify somebody like that, they are most likely going to fit into the bucket of a user PM. Is the person who is more of a technology or closer to a technology. They are always of the builder mindset saying, can it be done? Is it feasible? Do we have code for it? Do we have, are we using the best technology to actually do that? Often they know how to code. Often they know how, they often know how to manage the technical team. Sometimes even in small organizations, they actually develop as the engineering lead or the engineering manager. They plan technical feature roadmap in addition to product feature roadmap. Means we will do this optimization. We'll actually go set up our cloud infrastructure. They are always obsessed about things like scalability, code organization, reusability, performance, and the likes of it. Right. So basically, typically these are the three flavors, not casted in stone. Whenever you talk about a PM role, whenever you think of a PM role in an organization, when you consider it, always ask yourself where does it tilt? It might be a mixture of these three as well, but you should always know what are your strong points, where do you fit in, and where do you aspire from a career point of view to actually fit in. And hence, that is the role, that is the discussion that you should have whenever you want to basically join a PM role in a particular organization. So pretty much, that's what I wanted to share in the initial talk or the beginner's talk. Basically collected a bunch of resources for all of you to sort of continue this journey. If you have basically shown interest in taking up product management as a profession, these are some of the resources in the next 2 slides that you can actually go through to sort of learn more about PM as a role and all different flavors of PM, and also the kind of stuff or the kind of ideas, the kind of concepts that PMs typically deal with, right? So I've basically listed a bunch of books which are on my personal reading list and which are highly recommended books from a lot of different PMs that I have interacted with. A lot of online resources which product managers all over the world use and which will basically give you a very deep insight into what product management is across the world, not only in India, and how the entire profession is actually shaping up. All of these are links. And listed down my take on a lot of habits that you can develop starting, immediately after this talk, if you want to basically become a successful PM. In this list keeps evolving for me also because, frankly speaking, even I don't follow all of these things, but I try. For example, read a lot, online, offline, books, write. Write on platforms, share your opinions with other people. There is a there are awesome PM communities online who contribute a lot to each other's opinions, including ideas and product ideas and feature ideas that different people have. Write about things that you like, write about things that you dislike. It will force you to actually play with products. It will actually force you, if you have to write an article, if you want to basically say that I will put in 2 articles on Medium or LinkedIn in a week about 2 products, rest assured that it will basically ensure that you go and play with at least 2 products in a week. That is how you develop an eye, that is how you develop a critical opinion about a particular product or a bunch of products. Play with new apps, new websites, perform a user experience audit, go talk to 5 people and say, how do you feel about the new version of Facebook Messenger? If they have hidden the search button under a fab button for Android, do you think it is the right experience? Form an opinion. Whether your opinion is right or not, the jury is out there, only data will tell, but you have to, as a PM, form opinion. Take decisions saying this is good, this is bad. Understand why certain products have been built that way. If possible, ask their product managers why they have done this, why they have not done this. Make notes on user experiences, patterns, positives, negatives. A particular app is following always this kind of a pattern in the user experience. Why? If there is some place where they have deviated, that's a negative. Discuss, debate, and share, of course, with other PMs or PMs in the making. UpGrad definitely is a very powerful community where you can basically achieve this goal. You can talk with like-minded people and figure out what did you like about the product. If you have an idea, share this with other people, get their thoughts, make it better. And so get discussion going on. That's the only way that all of us can basically keep on staying abreast with what is happening, one, in this space, and two, how do you basically improve your knowledge and share and get a critical sense of how your customers and users are actually reacting. So yeah, so that's it what I had in my presentation. I'm sure I took a little longer than what I had originally planned. But yeah, happy to take any questions. And Deepak, back to you. I will stop my screen share right now if you say that is fine.
Yeah, Vishrut, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. Cool. So I'll be open for any questions. I sure hope that this might be useful.
Yeah, so Vishrut, I think the session was very insightful, even for a PM who is 1 or 2 years into a product management job, and especially for the beginners, as in getting different flavors of PM and like what do you need to become a PM. And as I see the audience questions here, I think 50% of that you have already covered. So I must say this was
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, glad to hear that.
Yeah, so I'm sure you are resonating very well with the audience. So we have like 10 minutes and like we will take around 5 to 6 questions. We'll try to finish them very quickly. So I will make these questions very specific. Okay, so since it's a beginner session, one of the questions that we generally asked is, do you need an MBA or a tech background to be a PM, or do you need to have a data background to be a PM? So being a product leader, you have hired a lot of people, I'm sure, and you have worked in matured companies like Microsoft and startups like Zivame. You also have been in a techie role. So what are the qualities that you look for when you hire a PM? Like there are some specific 2 or 3 qualities that people have to develop when they're thinking about being a PM.
Sure. So I will try and answer that using my experience of getting interviewed, one, and two, my experience of interviewing other prospective PMs. Right. So I think the topmost that I look for is basically customer focus. So those 5 or 6 qualities, that minimum viable PM's slide that I had put in, right? Those are actually nothing else than what I typically look for. And in any given interview, I basically try and touch upon any, to see if the candidate actually makes a tick on in the non-negotiable quality is the customer focus. When I ask somebody a question or I give them a design problem to solve, do they first ask me back whether who's my actual target customers, because all my future responses will actually depend on that, right?
Right.
Things like these show me that the candidate is actually thinking, keeping the customer at the very center of the problem, and not basically thinking, by just churning out ideas or generating ideas, and then finally in the end figure out that there's a customer who also we need to think about, right? So
Right.
customer focus is definitely one thing. The second is the ability to basically, we as a PM, we work with a lot of stakeholders. So business will give you feedback, sales will give you feedback, marketing will give you feedback, your CEO will give you feedback, your organization leaders will give you feedback, your peers will give you feedback. As a PM, you are supposed to be not closed to all of this feedback. You have to basically get all of them together, apply it in that framework that you have in mind, whether are you doing the right thing for the customer or not. Churn out, communicate the decision saying this is my point of view, these are the reasonings for that, right? If you have data to back it, nothing like it. I mean, absolutely, data is the supreme truth, and nobody can actually counter data if you go with solid data. If you don't have data, so that's where your data skills and analytical skills, and whether you can basically, if you don't have a real primary data, can you basically get a quick dipstick survey done with, let's say, 20 people overnight? If I give somebody a problem and say tomorrow morning in the board meeting we will be deciding about this particular thing, if the if my prospective PM has actually basically used 12 hours in the night to just call up 20 of his friends and get a dipstick survey done, whether this will fly or not, a very initial non quantitatively significant survey will also do. That shows the hacker mindset or the data mindset of the person, right? So if that is there, that is fine. If there's a qualitative, research available, or some compete examples available, is the person able to basically pick those up and marry those two, right? So these are some of those points. So any of those 5-6 points that I basically mentioned on this slide, right? There are different ways of checking those. And in those order, if the person actually makes a tick on the 5 or 6 of them, that person clearly has the PM mindset or the temperament.
Makes sense. And this brings the question whether, beyond customer focus, does the person need to have an MBA or a tech background?
Sure.
Does that matter?
Yeah. So I'll first take the tech background question, because that's actually an easier one to crack. If you are going to work as a PM in a technology heavy company, which is pretty much how the PM landscape has been evolving in India in the last 2 years or so, right? PM, with a lot of startups coming in, and a lot of startups coming in banking on technology as their core expertise, right? It becomes very important that the candidate has some background, if not a formal background, if the candidate has a sound understanding of engineering. I work currently in Zivame, but I have worked on web technologies in the past. I worked on HTML in the past, but that was when I was in 10th standard or 12th standard. Right? I'm pretty sure that HTML5 was not around there. CSS was not as evolved. All the new technologies like Node.js and everything that we deal with today, right? The Pythons of the world, the Node.js of the world were not existing back then. Doesn't mean I don't understand tech. I can't code in those languages today. Of course, give me some time and I will be able to pick it up, because that's a required quality for PM. But I don't know those technologies. Doesn't mean I don't understand architecture. I don't understand how code is actually done, how it is architected, what is the right flow of doing it, right? Bring that understanding from any background that you have, and if you're able to basically demonstrate that technical understanding and architectural understanding, I think that is good enough. So technical background not must. Definitely companies prefer it, but then if you can crack an interview by saying that, look, I do understand this, this is how things work, and the rest everything I learn on the job.
Sure.
It's done. It'll be gone. MBA question is actually a little more trickier. It depends on the organization. Again, which hire straight out of engineering colleges, nothing wrong in doing that. There are organizations which require the PM role to be a mix of business as well as technology, business as well as product, right? So depending on how the role has been structured and what is the expected outcomes from the role, definitely helps. The reason MBA degree definitely helps is because you understand business metrics much better. You understand that will be much better, right? So, and you can talk to your stakeholders in a language which is much closer to business as compared to somebody who doesn't have an MBA degree. While everything that you apply on the job can be learned over time, an MBA degree helps you start, a little bit accelerated in terms of your understanding, and then your career path might become accelerated. Definitely not a requirement. Good to have is what I would say.
Right. Okay. Uh, so this is, I think, the last question since we are running against time. But this is a very specific question related to your experience. So
Sure.
one is regarding the user research at companies like Microsoft, which have an international audience. And the second is about the importance of data while you make decisions. So both user research, either user research or data can be used to make product decisions. So when do you use these to make these decisions, and does it differ significantly when you have an international audience versus Zivame, which has a Indian consumer user base?
Absolutely. So rather than being the rather than the organization being present in multiple, it being an MNC versus a specific, one country focused organization, it depends on the product that you are building. If so, I'll just give you a very simple example of Office for Android. Office for Android, while it was getting built, the user research which happened used to happen in the US, in the Europe, in India, in China, in parts of Southeast Asia. The reason for that is the product that we're building out is global. We used to support 40 plus languages. So during a user research, if you figure out that in a particular language, when you basically render the UI or the app in a particular language, if the language is usually takes longer to express a particular word, the text will actually overflow the button. That's a UX problem to solve. You will realize it during user research. You will actually realize whether if you start ellipsizing things, if you basically beyond a point just indicate things with dot dot dot, whether it makes sense for a user in, let's say, Indonesia versus if you start doing it in English as a language or French as a language, right? So these are things which will, the complexity of building a global product mandates it that you do user research and look at data across geographies. We used to figure out that Excel's usage in Japan is very high. Excel was the most used app in Japan. There was a particular reason for that. The data speaks that you need to since it's the most used product in Japan. Japan has a typical user behavior. You can tweak Excel as an app and in code to make it more useful for users in Japan as compared to doing those tweaks for users in India or Europe
Makes sense.
or the US, right? So data is the one which basically speaks. Coming to a local product, like let's say if we are building a product for India, right? The complexities are less. I don't have to localize my product. I can basically sit on English as my primary platform in the UI. I did not localize it for, let's say, English, Hindi, and Spanish and French and everything. However, the user research is still important. In the process of conducting user research, in fact, we did conduct 2 user research today, earlier in the day in the office itself. We have got such deep understandings. There are things that as product managers, you completely assume on behalf of the user, which user research basically allows you to sort of correct. If you have placed a button on the right hand side saying this cannot be missed by the users, you will be surprised by seeing how real users, one after the other, just goes and completely misses that button. That is a typical user behavior that you cannot identify while building the product. It's only hard data and qualitative feedback from different users which can solve. So absolutely, whatever be the context of the organization, and the product, both data as well as user research are non-negotiable totally in the product development sector.
Makes sense. So, Vishrut, I think we have crossed the time, and there are many questions left right now, but we don't have the time. So, for today, we would be concluding the session.
Sure.
And I especially thank you for all the pain you took to create this presentation. This is going to be very useful to the people who are going to begin their career in PM.
Okay, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you guys for joining us. If you have any questions, and I'm sure you will have, you can feel free to write me at deepak.singh@upgrad.com. I will also pass these questions to Vishrut, and then we can answer your questions. You can also check our YouTube channel where we upload these webinars and videos, and you can check our website as well to see which webinars we are going to go live with in the future. Thanks again, Vishrut, for taking your time, and thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone. It was a great session. I enjoyed doing it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, Deepak.
Bye-bye.